0500 hours, Avdiivka Industrial Zone, Eastern Sector. The pre-dawn darkness is absolute, a heavy black shroud draped over the skeletal remains of the factory complex. A thick, freezing mist clings to the ground, obscuring the deep craters and twisted rebar that litter the landscape. The air smells of wet concrete, rusted iron, and the lingering copper scent of old blood. Silence reigns here, but it is a heavy, suffocating silence. It is the quiet of a graveyard waiting for new occupants. Somewhere in the distance, a stray dog barks, the sound echoing endlessly against the hollowed-out shells of the buildings. Shadows detach themselves from the ruined walls. A team of elite operators moves through the debris with practiced fluidity. They do not run, they glide. Their boots, wrapped in dampening cloth, sink silently into the freezing mud. They carry heavy loads. These are not standard rifles. Strapped to their backs are massive rectangular launch canisters, heavy anti-tank systems designed to shatter main battle tanks. The weight digs into their shoulders, but no one grunts. No one speaks. They navigate the treacherous terrain by memory and hand signals alone. They reach the ambush point, a collapsed concrete slab overlooking the main supply route. This is the kill box. The team moves instantly into action. Heavy tripods slam into the rubble, finding purchase in the debris. The operators heave the massive missile tubes off their backs and lock them onto the mounts with a sharp metallic clack. Cables are run rapidly across the whetstone, connecting the launchers to a central command tablet. An operator wipes this condensation from the screen. His fingers fly across the glass interface, calibrating the guidance systems. The ground begins to tremble. It starts as a low vibration, shaking the dust from the cracked walls. A pebble skitters across the concrete. The operator at the heavy missile controls stiffens. He checks the thermal optic feed. The screen washes in cool grays and blues, but on the horizon, bright white signatures burn through the mist. Heat, massive amounts of it. The sound arrives next. A deep mechanical grinding that tears the morning air apart. The roar of diesel engines grows louder, layering over the metallic screech of tracks chewing up the asphalt. The lead vehicle breaks through the fog. It is a Russian infantry fighting vehicle, a squat, ugly beast of steel and reactive armor. Its turret rotates slowly, the long barrel of its autocannon sweeping the ruins. It hunts for targets. It finds nothing but shadows. Behind it, another behemoth emerges, then a third. The column stretches back into the darkness, a train of 11 heavy machines grinding forward with arrogant weight. The Israeli team leader watches through his binoculars. He raises a gloved hand. The team freezes. They press their bodies into the cold mud, pulling gray camouflage netting over the heavy launch tubes. They become part of the ruin. The enemy column rumbles closer. The vibration is now a physical force, rattling the teeth of the operators. The noise is deafening. The lead IFV is now only 400 meters away. Its tracks crush a burnt-out car flat as it advances. The operator on the command tablet locks the crosshairs onto the lead vehicle. A red diamond blinks into existence on the screen. He shifts the targeting reticle to the second vehicle. Another lock. He looks to the team leader. The leader's hand hovers in the air, steady as stone. The convoy enters the center of the trap. The heavy missiles sit silent in their tubes, dormant predators waiting for the command to wake. 0522 hours, Avdiivka ambush site. The roar of the Russian diesel engines reaches a crescendo. The noise hammers against the chest cavities of the hidden operators. The ground vibrates violently, dislodging loose mortar from the ruined walls. The lead infantry fighting vehicle passes directly beneath the kill zone, its exhaust venting thick black smoke into the cold air. The steel tracks grind the pavement to dust. The massive machine is a moving fortress, seemingly invincible in the dim light. The team leader drops his hand. The command operator presses the firing stud. The silence shatters. A thunderous crack splits the air as the first heavy missile erupts from its launch tube. A jet of scorching white flame blasts out the rear, kicking up a massive cloud of dust and debris. The projectile screams forward, accelerating instantly to supersonic speed. It flies low, skimming just feet above the broken ground like a predator shark cutting through water. A second missile launches milliseconds later from the flank position, trailing a thin guidance wire. The first missile closes the distance in a heartbeat. It slams into the frontal armor of the lead IFV. The impact is catastrophic. The warhead detonates with the force of a wrecking ball. It punches through the reactive armor blocks as if they were paper. A blinding flash of orange light engulfs the front of the vehicle. The heavy-shaped charge jets molten copper through the hull, vaporizing the driver instantly. The entire 20-ton machine shudders violently, lifting off its front tracks. The fuel tanks ignite. A massive fireball erupts from the chassis, expanding outward and consuming the air. The heavy steel turret, weighing tons, shears off its ring. It spins through the air, trailing smoke, and crashes into the mud 10 meters away with a dull, heavy thud. The second missile strikes the rear vehicle of the column. It hits the engine block. The explosion shreds the back of the transport, blowing the ramp doors off their hinges. Metal fragments spray the surrounding ruins like shrapnel from a grenade. The engine block disintegrates, spewing burning oil across the road. The vehicle slews sideways, its tracks locked, blocking the only retreat path. The convoy is trapped. Panic takes hold of the column. The remaining 9 vehicles slam on their brakes. Tracks screech against the asphalt as 30-ton machines slide to a halt. In the center of the line, 2 IFVs collide. Metal screams against metal as the rear of one vehicle crushes the front of another. The force of the collision throws the gunners inside against their sights. The burning wreck of the lead vehicle illuminates the kill zone. Black smoke billows upward, choking the narrow street. Inside the trapped column, turrets spin wildly, searching for the source of the attack. Autocannons begin to fire blindly into the ruins. Tracer rounds slash through the mist, chipping concrete and sparking off rebar, but the shots go high. The Israeli operators do not flinch. They move with robotic precision. Empty launch tubes are discarded. Fresh canisters are slammed onto the mounts. The distinct clack of locking mechanisms echoes through the smoke. The command operator acquires new targets. The targeting reticles settle on the confused stationary vehicles in the center of the kill box. 0527 hours, the kill box. The scene is a chaotic hellscape of strobing light and choking smoke. The burning carcasses of the lead and rear vehicles act as massive pyres, casting long dancing shadows across the trapped column. In the center, the remaining Russian vehicles grind their gears, engines screaming as drivers attempt to turn their massive machines around in the narrow corridor. They smash into each other. Steel shrieks against steel, fenders crumple and headlights shatter. High in the ruins, the Israeli team leader slices his hand downward. The second volley erupts. 3 heavy missiles streak from the tree line simultaneously. They ride the laser guidance beams, weaving slightly through the smoke. The sound is a high-pitched shriek that cuts through the roar of the engines. The first missile slams into the flank of a command vehicle in the center of the cluster. The warhead punches through the thinner side armor effortlessly. The explosion is contained inside the hull. The hatches blow open from the overpressure. A violent geyser of flame shoots straight up into the night sky, venting the inferno raging inside the crew compartment. The second missile hits the turret ring of the adjacent vehicle. The impact shears the connection. The turret, weighing tons, jumps 5 feet into the air before crashing back down onto the chassis, crushing the driver's hatch. The ammunition inside ignites immediately. Cook-off. A rhythmic series of internal explosions rocks the hull, popping rivets and buckling the armor plates outward. The third missile finds a gap between 2 colliding carriers. It strikes the exposed fuel drum on the rear of the left vehicle. The drum detonates. Burning diesel sprays across the infantry deck of the neighboring machine. The Russian infantrymen panic. Rear ramps drop heavily onto the asphalt. Soldiers stumble out into the smoke, coughing and blinded. They are silhouetted against the raging fires of their transport. The Israeli support element opens up. Heavy machine guns positioned on the upper floors of the factory ruins unleash a torrent of lead. The sound is a steady, rhythmic hammering. Bullets chew up the pavement around the fleeing soldiers. Sparks fly as rounds ricochet off the burning hulls. The soldiers have nowhere to run. They dive behind the wheels of the burning vehicles, pressing their bodies into the mud. A Russian gunner on a surviving vehicle spots the muzzle flashes in the high ruins. He traverses his autocannon. The barrel spins. He fires a burst of high-explosive rounds. The shells slam into the concrete wall of the factory, blowing out a massive section of masonry. Dust engulfs the Israeli machine gun position, but the anti-tank team is already moving. They detach the spent launch tubes and slide into new firing positions 10 meters to the right. They reload. The mechanical clack of fresh missiles locking into place is the only sound they make. 0535 hours, the killing field. The street is no longer a road, it is a river of fire. Leaking diesel fuel flows into the gutters, igniting lines of flame that wall off the escape routes. The heat is intense enough to blister paint on the surrounding walls. Thick, oily smoke rolls over the convoy, creating a suffocating fog of war. Visibility is reduced to 0 for the naked eye. Only the thermal sights of the Israeli team cut through the gloom, seeing the white-hot signatures of engines and bodies against the cool background of the ruins. A single Russian infantry fighting vehicle attempts a desperate breakout. The driver floors the accelerator. The massive engine roars, spitting black exhaust. The 30-ton machine lurches forward, its front armor slamming into the burning wreck of the lead vehicle. Metal screeches against metal. The burning carcass slides a few feet, grinding into the asphalt, but the weight is too much. The tracks of the pushing vehicle spin uselessly, stripping rubber pads and throwing sparks into the air. The Israeli team leader marks the struggling beast. Fire. The command is a whisper, but the result is thunder. A heavy missile bursts from the tree line. It covers the 300 meters in a blink. The warhead slams into the exposed side of the struggling IFV just above the track line. The explosion is blinding. The heavy track assembly disintegrates. Huge steel links, each weighing 50 pounds, are whipped through the air like chain shot. The road wheels shear off. The vehicle drops violently onto its belly, the momentum spinning it sideways. It skids across the burning fuel, crashing into a concrete barrier. The turret hatches fly open. 3 crew members scramble out, their uniforms smoking. They tumble off the hull, hitting the hard pavement. From the ruins above, the Israeli sniper element engages. The shots are methodical. Crack, crack, crack. The fleeing crew members drop mid-stride. One falls forward, his helmet skidding across the stones. Another spins, clutching his shoulder before collapsing into the shadow of the wreck. Inside the remaining vehicles, panic turns to fatal indecision. Turrets traverse wildly, firing autocannon rounds into the empty windows of the factory. Heavy 30mm shells punch holes in the brickwork, bringing down clouds of dust, but the Israeli teams have already moved. They are ghosts. They fire, detach, and vanish into the darkness of the complex, reappearing 30 meters away at a new firing port. A Russian soldier, prone behind a wheel, pulls the pin on a grenade and hurls it toward the ruins. It falls short, detonating harmlessly in a crater. He screams into his radio handset, begging for artillery support. The only answer is static and the relentless hiss of burning hydraulic fluid. 0540 hours, the graveyard of steel. The catastrophic destruction of the column reaches its peak. 7 vehicles are now fully engulfed in flames. The heat radiating from the burning metal is so intense that the air shimmers, distorting the view through the thermal optics. The remaining 4 Russian IFVs are immobilized, boxed in by the wreckage of their comrades. Their engines idle roughly, the sound a low, defeated growl amidst the crackle of the fires. Inside the burning husks, the ammunition reserves reach critical temperature. The first cook-off is a localized event. A sharp pop, pop, pop echoes from the 3rd vehicle in the line. Then, the main magazine detonates. The explosion is violent and total. The entire roof of the IFV rips open like a sardine can. A vertical column of fire shoots 50 feet into the air, turning the night sky a bruised purple. The shockwave slams into the neighboring vehicles, rocking them on their suspension. Shrapnel, bolts, hinges, fragments of armor, hails down on the surrounding ruins, pinging off the concrete like deadly rain. Seconds later, the 5th vehicle follows suit. Its autocannon rounds begin to detonate inside the feed chute. The barrel explodes, peeling back like a banana skin. The internal pressure builds until the rear doors blast outward, sending a torrent of burning debris across the street. The Israeli operators press themselves flat against the floor of the factory. Dust rains down from the ceiling as the shockwaves batter the building. They check their equipment. The missile tubes are hot to the touch. The air is thick with the acrid taste of cordite and burning plastic. On the street below, the survivors of the infantry squads are stunned. The concussive force of the explosions has knocked the wind out of them. They stumble through the smoke, their movements sluggish and uncoordinated. The Israeli team leader signals the final phase. The heavy weapon teams break down their positions. They collapse the tripods and stow the command tablets. They leave the empty launch canisters where they lie, spent casings of a giant's gun. The sniper teams remain behind to cover the withdrawal. They watch the chaos below through high magnification scopes. A Russian officer attempts to rally a group of survivors near the rear of the convoy. He waves a pistol, shouting orders that are swallowed by the roar of the fires. A single shot rings out from the high ruins. The officer drops. The rallying cry ends. The surviving soldiers scatter, abandoning any semblance of order. They disappear into the shadows of the ruins, leaving their burning machines behind. 0550 hours, the aftermath. The wind shifts, dragging the heavy curtain of smoke to the west. It reveals the full scale of the devastation. The road is a scar of black soot and twisted metal. 11 Russian infantry fighting vehicles sit in a jagged line, broken and burning. They are no longer machines of war. They are hollowed-out monuments to destruction. The fires have died down to a sullen orange glow in the belly of the wrecks. Occasional sparks drift upward, joining the stars that are slowly fading in the pre-dawn light. The silence returns, but it is different now. It is the silence of exhaustion. The only sound is the cooling metal ticking and pinging as it contracts in the freezing air. The Israeli team moves with the discipline of ghosts. They do not celebrate, they do not linger. They verify the destruction through their optics one last time. Every vehicle is a confirmed kill. The threat to the sector has been neutralized. They shoulder their gear, the weight lighter now without the massive missiles. They slip back into the shadows of the industrial complex. They move away from the road, stepping carefully over the rubble to avoid leaving tracks. They utilize the drainage tunnels to bypass the Russian perimeter. The damp darkness of the tunnels swallows them. Behind them, the first light of dawn touches the top of the ruined factory. It illuminates the rising columns of smoke, marking the graveyard of the armored column. A drone buzzes high overhead, recording the carnage for the intelligence debrief. On the ground, a lone Russian survivor crawls out from under a pile of debris. He is covered in soot, his eyes wide and vacant. He looks at the line of burning steel that was once his company. He drops his head into his hands. 0600 hours. The Israeli unit is gone. They have vanished as completely as they arrived, leaving only the burning evidence of their passing. The ambush is over. The war grinds on. 0630 hours, western perimeter, friendly lines. The sun has fully breached the horizon, casting a harsh pale light over the frozen landscape. The wind whips across the open fields, biting exposed skin. In a concealed trench line 2 kilometers from the ambush site, a Ukrainian mechanized infantry unit waits. Their vehicles are hull down, engines idling, exhaust plumes rising like white pillars. The soldiers scan the tree line with anxious intensity. They know what is out there. They heard the explosions. Movement at the edge of the forest. A signal mirror flashes once, then twice. The Ukrainian commander lowers his binoculars. He waves a green flag. The Israeli special operators emerge from the trees. They do not look like the fresh soldiers in the trench. They are coated in a layer of gray dust and mud. Their faces are smeared with camouflage paint, eyes bright and alert within the dark masks. They move with a heavy, rhythmic gait, the adrenaline of the ambush fading into the dull ache of physical exertion. They carry their weapons at the low ready, scanning the flanks even now, inside friendly territory. The discipline never cracks. They slide into the trench line. There are no handshakes, no cheers, just professional nods between warriors. The Ukrainian soldiers look at them with a mix of awe and curiosity. They eye the empty mounting brackets on the operators' backs, the ghostly outline of the heavy weapons that destroyed an entire armored company. The team leader moves to the command vehicle. He pulls a hardened data drive from his vest. He hands it to the waiting intelligence officer. "Target destroyed," he says. His voice is raspy, dry from the smoke. 11 confirmed, no survivors. The officer takes the drive. He looks at the live drone feed on his monitor. The screen shows the distant column of smoke rising from the industrial zone, a black smudge against the blue sky. The road is blocked. The Russian advance in this sector is dead. The operators climb into the back of an awaiting unmarked transport truck. The canvas flap drops, sealing them in darkness. They slump onto the benches. Heads lean back against the canvas, eyes close. One operator unscrews a canteen and takes a long, silent drink. Another begins to wipe the mud from his rifle receiver. The truck engine revs. Tires crunch over the frozen gravel. The vehicle pulls away, heading west, away from the front. Behind them, the artillery begins to duel again, the deep thudding of 155mm howitzers resuming the rhythm of the war. But for this team, the job is done. 0715 hours, the ambush site. The sun is fully up, revealing the scar of the battle in harsh daylight. The fires have burned down to smoldering embers. The twisted skeletons of the 11 IFVs sit cold and silent. A new sound approaches from the east. It is the heavy, labored engine of a BREM-1 armored recovery vehicle. It rumbles slowly up the road, followed by a truckload of Russian combat engineers. They wear heavy body armor and carry mine detectors. They move cautiously, stepping over the debris. The recovery vehicle halts in front of the lead wreck. The massive hydraulic crane swings out. A mechanic jumps down from the hull. He drags a heavy steel tow cable toward the destroyed chassis. The air is thick with the smell of burnt rubber and death. The engineers sweep the ground, the electronic whine of their detectors rising and falling. The mechanic climbs onto the burnt hull of the lead IFV. He loops the cable around the towing hook. He signals to the driver. The cable pulls taut. The winch groans. The burnt metal of the wreck screeches as it is dragged across the asphalt. Underneath the wreck, a pressure plate shifts. The Israeli team left a parting gift. The explosion is small but vicious. A claymore mine, planted in the mud beneath the chassis, detonates. 700 steel ball bearings spray outward at waist height. The mechanic is thrown backward off the hull. He hits the ground and does not move. The engineers near the front of the vehicle are cut down instantly. They collapse into the mud, clutching their legs. The windshield of the recovery vehicle shatters. Panic erupts again. The surviving engineers dive into the ditches. They fire their rifles wildly into the surrounding ruins, aiming at ghosts. "Contact! Contact!" they scream. But there is no enemy. There is only the trap. The driver of the recovery vehicle slams the transmission into reverse. The massive machine lurches backward, crushing the tow cable. It smashes into a pile of rubble. Silence returns, broken only by the groans of the wounded and the hiss of the recovery vehicle's radiator. The ambush site remains a kill zone, even hours after the operators have left. 800 hours. Airspace above Avdiivka. The sky is a flat, hard gray. Clouds hang low at 2,000 feet. The drone of a propeller engine fades, replaced by a much sharper, deadlier sound. It is a high-pitched whine that quickly deepens into a chest-vibrating roar. Two dark shapes drop out of the cloud base. They are Russian ground attack jets. Their wings are loaded heavy with unguided rocket pods and cluster munitions. They bank hard, their engines screaming as they line up on the smoke rising from the ambushed column. The flight leader spots the devastated convoy. He sees the burning wrecks. He sees the collapsed factory walls where the missiles came from. He keys his radio. Rolling in, the lead jet dives. The nose drops. The pilot stabilizes the reticle over the industrial ruins. He squeezes the trigger. The wings light up. Rockets erupt from the pods in a rapid-fire ripple. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Dozens of high-explosive projectiles streak toward the ground. They leave trails of white smoke that weave together into a net of destruction. The impact is instantaneous and overwhelming. The factory ruins disappear. A series of rapid detonations ripples across the concrete skeleton. Walls that had stood for 50 years are pulverized into dust in seconds. The ground heaves. Concrete slabs form a wave of debris that crashes outward, burying the ambush positions under tons of rubble. The second jet follows. It drops two large canisters. They tumble end over end. They strike the center of the complex. Thermobaric warheads trigger. First, a small charge disperses a cloud of fuel aerosol. A split second later, the main charge ignites it. The air itself burns. A massive, expanding sphere of fire consumes the oxygen in the kill zone. The shockwave is visible as a distortion in the air, expanding outward at supersonic speed. It flattens the remaining trees. It sucks the air out of the basements and tunnels, creating a vacuum that collapses lungs and ruptures eardrums. The jets pull up, their afterburners glowing blue-white against the gloom. They climb vertically, punching back through the cloud layer. On the ground, there is nothing left. The ambush site, the firing positions, and the evidence are gone. There is only a massive smoking crater and the smell of ozone. The Russian retaliation has wiped the slate clean, but the target, the Israeli team, is miles away, watching the black mushroom cloud rise over the horizon from the safety of the extraction point. 1,200 hours, Avdiivka crater site. The smoke is cleared, leaving a landscape of gray ash and pulverized concrete. The sun hangs high, indifferent to the destruction below. A black SUV with tinted windows navigates the debris field, flanked by two armored personnel carriers. The vehicles stop at the edge of the massive impact crater left by the airstrike. Men in dark, unmarked uniforms step out. They are not infantry. They are GRU technical intelligence officers. They wear clean boots and carry tablets instead of rifles. They move with arrogant purpose. Soldiers from the perimeter guard step aside, lowering their eyes. The lead officer descends into the crater. The ground is still warm. Smoke rises from fissures in the earth. He scans the debris. He is not looking for bodies. He is looking for metal. He activates a handheld scanner. It emits a low, pulsing hum. He sweeps it over the twisted remains of the lead infantry fighting vehicle. The scanner shrieks. He kneels in the mud. He pulls a folding shovel from his belt and digs. The blade hits something hard. He pries it loose. It is a fragment of the missile tail fin. It is twisted and scorched, but the metal is distinct. It is a high-grade aerospace titanium alloy, not the steel used in standard artillery shells. It gleams dully in the sunlight. The officer wipes the soot away with his thumb. He reveals a partial stamp on the metal. It is not Cyrillic. It is a series of numbers and a single Hebrew letter. He freezes. His eyes narrow. He pulls a macro lens camera from his pocket and snaps 3 rapid photos. He uploads them instantly to the secure server. His earpiece crackles. A voice from Moscow speaks. The tone is sharp, demanding. The officer stands up. He looks at the line of destroyed vehicles. He looks at the fragment in his hand. He realizes the implication. This was not a lucky artillery strike. This was precision surgery. He drops the fragment into an evidence bag. He seals it with a sharp zip. He climbs out of the crater, signaling his team to pack up. They move fast. They have seen the ghost, and they know it will be back. 1800 hours. Underground command bunker, undisclosed location near Tel Aviv. The air is filtered, cool, and hums with the sound of server banks. The room is bathed in the blue glow of large tactical displays. A map of eastern Ukraine dominates the main wall. Red icons mark Russian positions. A single green line marks the path of the extraction team. A senior officer stands at the head of the table. He wears plain fatigues, no rank insignia. His face is illuminated by the screen. Around the table, 3 analysts type furiously on laptops. The mood is tense but controlled. Team is secure, one analyst says. Her voice is flat, professional. Crossing the Polish border at 0200. The officer nods. He taps the screen. The image changes to a satellite reconnaissance photo taken 1 hour ago. It shows the 11 scorched marks on the road in Avdiivka. It shows the massive crater where the factory used to be. Damage assessment? The officer asks. Total kill on the armor, the analyst replies. Intercepted Russian comms indicate panic. They think it was a new NATO wonder weapon. They are pulling their reserve armor back 5 kilometers. The officer leans forward, resting his hands on the metal table. And the signature? Clean, the analyst says, but GRU was on site within 4 hours. They found fragments. They know it wasn't Ukrainian hardware. The officer stares at the map. He traces the red line of the Russian front. Let them wonder, fear is a force multiplier. If they think every shadow holds a heavy missile team, they will freeze. He straightens up. He looks at the live feed of the team's transport truck moving through the dark Polish countryside. Scrub the mission logs, he orders. This never happened. The Ukrainians did it with drones. That is the official line. Understood. The analyst types a command. The green line on the map disappears. The file named Operation Shatter is encrypted and archived into the deepest level of the server. The officer walks out of the room. The heavy steel door seals behind him with a hydraulic hiss. The bunker returns to silence. The war continues on the screens. A video game played with real lives, but the players have left the table. 2300 hours, Russian armor staging area, 15 kilometers east of Avdiivka. The night is alive with the harsh hiss of welding torches and the clang of heavy hammers. A dozen main battle tanks sit in the mud, their engines cold. They are not sleeping. Their crews swarm over the hulls like desperate ants. The destruction of the morning column has spread like a virus through the radio networks. Fear is physical here. It smells of unwashed bodies and burnt flux. A tank commander stands on his turret. He screams at a young mechanic. He points to the roof of the turret. He wants more steel. The mechanic drags a rusted bed frame from a pile of looted debris. He heaves it up the side of the 60-ton beast. He holds it over the commander's hatch. The welder strikes an arc. Blue-white light strobes in the darkness, illuminating the terrified eyes of the crew. They are welding makeshift cages, slat armor, over their hatches. They believe this scrap metal will stop the heavy missiles. It is a desperate ritual. Nearby, a loader fills sandbags. He packs them tight until his knuckles bleed. He stacks them along the ammunition storage racks on the tank's flank. He builds a wall of dirt against the coming fire. He does not stop to wipe the sweat from his eyes. He works with the manic energy of a man digging his own foxhole. A shout echoes from the perimeter. Drone, overhead, the welding stops instantly. The darkness rushes back in as torches are doused. Every head snaps up. Soldiers raise their rifles. They scan the stars. A faint buzz drifts on the wind. It might be a drone. It might be a generator. It doesn't matter. Panic pulls the trigger. A heavy machine gun opens up from a perimeter guard tower. Thump, thump, thump. The tracer rounds streak into the empty sky, chasing phantoms. A lieutenant runs into the mud, waving his arms. Cease fire! Cease fire! The gun falls silent. The echo dies. The buzzing is gone. The tank crews look at each other. They look at the darkness beyond the wire. They know the ghosts are out there. They know their armor is paper. The commander kicks the welder. Finish it, he hisses. We move at dawn. The torch flares to life again. The sparks fall into the mud, dying instantly.